Hey guys, we're live at vNext, and we're here with the Women in Teams panel, and we're going to be talking all things women in tech and women in teams today. First, we're going to start by going around and just introducing ourselves, and then we're going to have some questions, or we're just going to have some chat.
Excellent. I'm so happy to be here. This is so completely exciting and cool. Have my little headset. I am Caruana with Microsoft Teams Engineering. I run our global community initiatives and adoption.microsoft.com and a whole bunch of solutions and everything. I have an amazing team. They are fantastic, and they let me come and do fun things like this sometimes. And so I've been in Teams since the very beginning, actually. Actually been at Microsoft now officially 10 years.
Wow.
Which is amazing. I started in the IT department, and I worked on migrating SharePoint to the cloud, and then I ran Skype for Business for Microsoft employees, and then managed to get a gig in Teams engineering. So that was really exciting. I knew it was going to be a thing. But of course, I didn't know about the pandemic, so that made it even more of a thing. But the favorite part of my job is to come to these events, because I love seeing people, and the community is so welcoming. If you're new out there, get yourself to a community event, because you'll make lifelong friends, I'm not kidding, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll get to really do great things for your career. And so thank you for having me on your cool panel.
We're so glad to have you here. So I'm Sharon Weaver, and I own an IT consulting company called Smarter Consulting. We help people solve problems, business and technology problems. I have been in technology for over 25 years, and I started in software development, technical support, and I got into the Microsoft world and found this really cool tool called SharePoint. And kind of went down that route and stayed in SharePoint for a long time. And then this Teams thing comes along, and everybody's like, that sounds like the perfect thing for you. And I was like, okay. And I fell in love. And so now I spend my day teaching people how to use Teams and basically helping them use more and get more out of what they already have. So I'm excited to get to do this today.
Well, I'm excited too. I think that's the theme of the day. This conference is always exciting anyway. But my name is Joy Apple. I am the Director of Customer and Partner Success for Orchestra Software. I started also with SharePoint. In fact, I'm Joy of SharePoint because I love it so much, and I always love a good pun. But I started as an administrator for a 2007 farm. Go Moss.
Yes, we get our stickers, our Moss stickers.
Go Moss. But every time something new came out in SharePoint, it was always so exciting, because then there was 2010, and then there was all these other things. But I discovered that I didn't do so well just talking to servers all day long every day. I craved the human interaction. So I began doing internal training, which led to being a trainer, which led to being a consultant. So for over 15 years now, I've been out and about training, helping, solving problems. And I would say within the last 4 or 5 years is where I really found community and the power of the community. It's amazing. And Caruana, I've got questions for you later about some of your personal insight in the community, but I'm excited to be part of this panel and part of this conversation.
Well, I'm Christy Robinson. I joined this powerful league of pros, and I'm glad to do so. I'm a woman in tech. I came into the Microsoft and SharePoint ecosystem, I want to say 20 plus years ago. I don't know if any of you remember eRooms. It was technology that was later purchased by Microsoft, and then it became WSS, Windows Server 3.0, and eventually SharePoint 2001, 2003. So I'm live or die, ride or die SharePoint all day long. And that originally was in the oil and gas community, in the IT realm. I was in project management, but in order to do some of the collaboration and the discussion and the information sharing for a project that spanned at that time 7 states, we really needed a web-based type of solution. So I was able to kind of pilot our company with early SharePoint as a Microsoft pilot, and that was the beginning of the bite for me, I think. So I had been angling to get into the IT org from that point on. I eventually did, and then I left the oil and gas industry to start my own consulting, Paint Rock Consulting, and that has allowed me to kind of cross-thread some of that expertise across multiple industries and verticals, which I love. I didn't realize I had a bit of ADHD a long time ago, but for ADHD people, if you are on a client and a long project, and that's great, but it's also wonderful to be able to have that exposure to different clients, different business cases, different requirements to help grow your knowledge and expertise in a particular skill area. That's how I came in.
I like to say, as a consultant, you don't marry your clients, you date them.
I always loved that.
Right.
I always loved being a consultant and getting to, and also you meet different people. It's very mentally stimulating. I always felt like it was, because you get to work on different business problems and what have you. I actually worried about that when I came inside Microsoft. Like, would I get bored?
Are you bored? Are you bored?
No, I'm not bored. I'm not at all bored. No. That's a non-issue.
Different airport every other day.
Yeah,
right?
seriously. Well, now again, right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I believe, Joy, we have some questions for us to kind of keep us focused. Now, that doesn't mean we can't go down some little fun, maybe unbeaten paths if we want to talk about some things, but you want to get us kicked off with maybe our first question?
Let's get it kicked off. And I'm debating which one's going to be first. But
Oh.
let's start with, what do you think is the biggest challenge in general for women in technology? We are here representing women in teams, which is a piece of women in technology. So what do we feel are the biggest challenges currently for women in tech? And anyone can go first, or we can go in order, whichever we prefer.
Let's start with Caruana.
Oh, okay.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Oh, I have many thoughts about this, so that's totally fine. I think there are three main challenges that we still face. The first is a lack of confidence. It's not what you know, it's how willing you are to stay curious and how willing you are to keep learning. I think sometimes we think we're supposed to have fixed knowledge when what you really need is the fluid ability to synthesize information into something meaningful for the people you're trying to serve. And whether that's a customer, your family, your nonprofit, your school, because that's where you're volunteering. But I really feel like there's so many brilliant women that I meet every day that think, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. I believe in every woman I meet in this business, and I feel like it's all about confidence. And then once you have some confidence, then you have to go and you have to sell it a little bit. You have to sell yourself, and I think that's a big challenge for some of us. Like, we feel like we're not being humble or something. I don't know. For me, humility doesn't pay the bills. I am humble. I am grateful. But I'm also clear about what I deliver and the value that I deliver. And that's not being arrogant. That's just having some clarity, right? And I do think it's a fine line, right? Because I don't like people who are full of themselves. I totally get what people are talking about there. But you have to be your own best advocate. You have to represent yourself. You have to represent your interests. And for me, when I won't do it for myself, I do it for my family. Right? And so it's like, it's not really about me at all. It's about what can I bring to my family and resources and time and stuff like that. And then the last thing I don't think is gender specific. I think it's the pace of change, like how to deal with the pace of change, So I don't know. I think confidence and a little chutzpah and that ability to get out there and meet people and authentically try to serve them. I have never sold Microsoft technology. I educate people about the options that they have. And yes, I have sold literally millions of dollars worth of Microsoft technology over my career because I've been in the field and what have you. But I don't think of myself as a salesperson. I never did. Right? I'm there to help. I'm there to be of service. I'm there to educate you, like what you said, about what people often already have and they're just not using. Right? So I don't feel like I'm a salesperson except when it comes to representing my own best interests. So I just want to encourage women to rep themselves a little more and pretend you're talking about something else. How would you tell your best girlfriend to answer that question? Right? Sometimes I take the answer I'd tell a friend and use it as my own. Because I'm not quite there, I don't quite feel it, but I would feel it for one of you, right? So if I can take that energy and then apply it to myself, then, that can help. So, yes, see, I told you I had thoughts.
I know. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think we all experience running into women who have self-doubt and lack of confidence. So I think that's, really important. I think, and once again, I mean, we face problems all the time, and I think women have their share of specific problems, but there are some genderless problems too. I don't know what's the right word.
Yeah, gender free.
Gender free.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things that we still struggle with, and definitely in American culture, so I'm not going to speak for the rest of the world because I don't know the rest of the world, but I do know in an American culture, we still have that idea that the corporate world is built around the idea that the man goes to work and the woman stays home and takes care of the kids.
Correct.
And so I think one of the big challenges we still face as women is the idea that corporate America is not built for flexible work environments where we have families and we have children and we have aging parents and we have siblings and we have lives outside of our corporate jobs. And I think that's why a lot of women tend to go to consulting and working for themselves, is because that corporate environment does not support the typical, stereotypical woman's life. And I think as a challenge, when we think about changing things, I feel like if that could kind of be reworked to be more supportive across the board, because now we've got dads that are staying home and we've got, parents that we have to take care of, and we're working remotely. And, there's all these different things that kind of come into play when we think about the way that corporate America is set up and structured to support those full-time workers. So, I mean, I'm going to say that, in my opinion, that's probably still one of our biggest challenges as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add something to that. I think, for women who are interested in tech, I think there's this underlying assumption that they have to be invited to the game or to the table. I know that was my feeling, and I know that was some time ago, but I've used that to try to very enthusiastically engage women who even show the slightest hint of interest in technology, to make them feel, yes, there's a place at this table for you. You might have to bring your own chair. You might have to carve out your own space, but by all means. And I have found, I've done some mentoring for some college-age students recently, and I have found that the digital natives and millennials and Gen Z age groups are finding that a bit easier. I think they find it a little bit more natural to just step up and say, I want to do this, or I want to be a part of this, whereas perhaps older women in the workforce who might have been on different tracks along their career paths might feel like they still need to be kind of coerced, or not coerced, but invited into the space.
It's interesting, on International Women's Day, there was a women's business group in Tulsa that got together, and I went to that. So it wasn't just technology, but it was across the board. And one of the panelists that was there is in the oil and gas industry, and she's a VP now. And she said that one of the things that she did that she thinks helped her get further than anything, apart from being professional and knowing her job and the business, she invited herself to meetings to be in the room. Mm-hmm. Right? Say, hey, I want to be a part of that. And Caruana, to your point, when I first read that question, my thought in my head, the biggest challenge for me is myself.
That's a great point.
A lot of times. We talk a lot in the community, and again, this is going to be a gender-free thing, about imposter syndrome. Man, I know I've done the work, right? I can look back over 16 years now just in IT and more professionally before I made the move to tech, and I can see the hours that were put in, but there's still those days and those moments where I'm like, no, I can't submit for that. Yes, I can. I would tell you to. I would tell you to. I would tell you to.
Yep.
So that confidence piece is missing. I think another challenge, and Sharon, this plays off of what you mentioned, people presume more than they should that someone's not interested because of their stage in life to do something. Oh, well, she's got 3 kids at home. She's not going to want to go to the conference, so we're not going to offer it to her. Let her turn that down.
Right.
Yeah.
Let her say, oh, I can't this year, but let's do it next year. So mentality, mindset, confidence, I think, it's such a multifaceted topic. But I think the more we talk about those things and the more we have that conversation in community, that gives us the opportunity to start knocking those challenges down and building each other up.
And one of the other pieces is you might I don't know, anybody listening out there might find it odd that I didn't start talking about being the only woman in the room or having people mansplain to me or, kind of that, that condescending, let me help you understand it, dear attitudes that are out there. It's not that those things don't happen, to me, luckily even at Microsoft, it's pretty rare because Microsoft is an awesome company for trying to change the culture of inclusion. And it's one of the main reasons that I work there is to be a part of that transformation. But it doesn't mean it's hit every single corner of our company, right? But I also feel that having that confidence, having the community, having friends, really, working your career as a team sport, it minimizes the impact of that negativity that we all encounter at one time or another. I've certainly worked with, some folks, especially before I got to Microsoft, that, wanted to explain a TCP/IP stack to me and didn't understand my background and didn't know that, I'm not the marketing gal. Right? Just because I wear lipstick doesn't mean I'm not an engineer or don't understand. Now, there are different kinds of engineers. There are kinds of engineers that I am not, right? For sure. But I am a technically minded female and, assume that and then we'll talk. But my confidence can kind of cut through some of that, right? And sometimes I feel like now I don't experience some of that because people do get my energy before I come in a room. And that's the benefit of also paying attention to my brand, right? Like everybody has a brand out there. You're either actively building it or it's building itself without your attention. So I have put a lot of effort into building my brand and owning that process so that nobody can tell my story for me, my own effort to tell my story.
I think that lends well, too, to all the work that you've done in community and bolstering and enhancing the existing community around the Microsoft entities. I think the Teams community is probably one of the biggest and most robust communities that has, taken a very short time to wrap up to this, or to the ramp up to the skill and that camaraderie that the SharePoint communities took, a decade or so to build. And that's been really great, I think, also because it reduces that feeling of intrinsic competition to, be a speaker or to be involved or to participate or volunteer. Having that community aspect and engagement in that with so many people who are just passionate about the technology, the use cases, helping people realize how to use it better and utilize it better and get what they're paying for in their tenants and their environments. I think that all goes a really long way, and that's what sometimes people have their first exposure to the community. At a SharePoint Saturday or a Community Days event, that could be their first real exposure to the whole community behind the scenes. And I think this community, or all of those communities as a whole, do a really great job of welcoming and growing interest within them.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Yeah, it's super important to just be welcoming and I'm just as happy when somebody else gets a keynote as if I do, or if somebody else gets a session. And I think new people in this space need to know that your experience is unique and valuable. It doesn't matter if somebody else is speaking on a similar part of the product. You're always going to have your own unique way of sharing it. And the community needs that. It needs that diversity. And it's open to that, right? And so it's just a great place to... I'm a big fan, of course.
I used to be so afraid of saying things, especially if I had just seen somebody else talk about something similar. And I remember a long time ago, somebody said to me, say it anyways, because you're going to be unique. You're going to have your own followers. You're going to have your own take on it. And I was so nervous because I was like, yeah, but I don't want to be copying these people. And now it's really funny because I mentor other people and I say the same thing. And looking at it from a different perspective is that you don't realize that because in our community, we see it all day long. We're tight in it. There's so much of a bigger world out there, and there is a unique perspective and there is a unique view that now I say the same thing to other people. Like, yeah, just say it anyways. Like, you're still going to put your unique perspective on the whole thing that you're doing.
Absolutely, because we all came to that from our own journey. And that journey's different for everyone's with different wins, losses, challenges. So that colors it differently for everybody. Well, speaking about community and all that, we just talked about or challenges and all that. What do we think have been the biggest successes and wins lately for women in technology teams? And maybe we'll take that and to talk about success and wins for the community as well.
There's so many.
Well-
There's so many great things that are going on right now, guys. Just so many great things.
Give me 3.
3.
No pressure.
I mean,
Well, one, I can fill that space real quick.
Do it.
One of them is when I come to conferences, small or large, I do a quick scan, whatever room that I'm in, to see, just out of curiosity, how many women are there and how many men. And I want to say in Ignite in 2017, I was often one of maybe 3 women in a room. And, you know, when you get a lot of people, 15,000 people or so at that conference, when you get a lot of people in the lunch areas and so some of the different big congregation areas, it's even more obvious.
do you remember the SharePoint conference where they closed the women's bathrooms on the primary level?
Yep.
Because there was so many men. We had to go upstairs to go to the bathroom.
That's right. I remember that. I do remember that.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
I remember there being no lines at the women's
Yes,
bathrooms, and now
yes.
at least there's a little line. To your
And that's
point.
changing too. I mean, even here at Comms vNext, you know, there is a fantastic growing ratio of women to men that are speaking not just on what might be considered some previous women's issues, but also the deep technical issues, the operations, the unified communications, the engineering stack to Gron's point. There's a great and growing diversity, I think, of men and women in the tech space, in the conference space. And that's great to see because you would hope that also reflects the working environments at these companies.
So are you seeing more women in the room now?
Yes, yep,
That's so great.
yeah. All the way around. I would say, I don't know, it's not an exact, science, but I would say in my impression, it's probably a 50% increase. Just
And your very official data collection
5
technique.
years.
Yeah, right.
My husband
exactly.
calls that the 2-eye theory. I put 2 eyes on it.
That's right. No, that works. Because also, the 2-eye theory, that's your lived experience.
Yeah.
Satya talks about that. It's like, it's one thing to have, an aspirational state for a product or program or community. But what is the lived experience of the people using that product or are part of that community? Do they feel welcomed? Do they see people that look like them? Do they, I spoke last weekend at the North Carolina State University STEM Olympiad, right? And so these are school-age kids from about 13 to, actually younger, 10 to 17, and it's competition. And you go to state there, and then you go on to the championship if you win, the national championship. And, it was so great to see those kids, but so many of the young girls came up and were like, it's so awesome to see a woman in technology, because they are surrounded by men. But there were a lot of young girls there,
Excellent.
a lot of young girls for the STEM competition. And they gave me so much energy. I was supposed to be their inspirational speaker, and I did my level best to do that. But they gave me so much inspiration. Seeing the diversity in that audience, seeing the young girls, knowing that and hoping at least that they won't have to go through some of the things that all of us have gone through to get to these chairs, right? And I actually, for me, that's one of the big pluses that's happened, is that there are more women like us who are reaching back and presenting and sharing our journeys so that we can inspire those young girls so that they don't have to feel like, I talked a lot about being bullied in high school. And for as tech famous as I am now and people want selfies, like nobody talked to me in high school. And when they talked to me, they were mean. Wow. And I was not popular. I was not cute. I had bad clothes. My hair was a mess. And I just was not, I was just a girl in her books, And so that can be your experience, but then you can grow up and join this community, and it's awesome, right? It makes such a difference. So I really, to me, that's a huge win. We get to now show them that yes, you can, live past those experiences and come here and do cool stuff.
I think there's a lot to be said for and gratefulness for people that go before. Nobody wants to be the first one to do something.
Right.
It's very intimidating. And we don't have to be the first ones, but like you said, there's still work to be done.
Yep.
I talked with, and now I feel so bad because I can't remember her name, but a fellow MVP at MVP Summit last week. And she said her first MVP Summit 9 years ago. Right? I saw that face. You're like, oh my. She looked around the room, and she was the only female, row after row after row after row after row. And in her sessions, she's dev-oriented. Only one in the room. And she says, but now I look around and I see way more. Right? That's progress, and that's something to be excited about, that there's more representation, more. And I know we have to be careful. We say the word inclusion, and we have to make sure by saying these people are included that we're not explicitly kicking anybody out, right? Everybody is welcome. The more voices at the table, the better for everyone. But to see that representation get better and to be thankful for those people that came before, it just sets the stage up for more successes for everyone. And that's something that I'm excited about.
I hate to use an overused term, but I think that normalizes,
Yes.
for a lot of people who are interested in a subject, normalizing seeing a diversity of faces and ages and experience and genders. That makes it much more inclusive and welcoming, I think, for everybody.
Agree.
And to remember that, I think you said it very well, in that we're so close to this community. We see these gains, we see what's happening, but that's not the day-to-day experience of a lot of people. And, one of the little girls at this event, she was like, I've never seen another Black woman in tech before.
Wow.
She'd literally never seen someone like me.
That's amazing.
It was totally amazing. And so just to remember that you may not think that what you're doing matters, but representation matters, inclusion matters. And no, we're not excluding anyone, but we are just making the table bigger and inviting more people to the party. I like to think of these things as parties, right? And
Absolutely.
so, because it's fun, and it makes up for people not coming to my birthday party when I was a kid, which is a true story. True story, by the way. No one came. One girl came. But, it makes a big difference. So don't think that what you're doing out there isn't part of this. We're all part of it. It's great.
I love it.
So how about this? Let's turn the tables to talk about ourselves, which
We can talk about ourselves.
for some women, that's a challenge, right? It's like,
This group, I think, can handle that challenge.
I think we'll
we can
be
do it.
okay.
We can do it. I'm going to start on this side.
Good,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
I'm going to start on this side
Hot
and
seat.
go around. We're on the hot seat now.
Scoot that mic in closer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. I'm in now. Yeah.
So just thinking over the last year or so, what has been one of your own personal successes?
Ooh.
Celebrate you.
That's an excellent question. So I have my own company and it's been around since late 2012 unofficially, and officially since April 2013. But last year, right after the Microsoft 365 conference, I joined a company as an employee. And then, as a lot of organizations, someone's tap dancing. As a lot of organizations have had waves of tech layoffs, I was swept up in tech layoffs, and so I've returned full-time to my organization. But what that meant was I needed to take some time and reflect on, do a brain dump, right? Because when you're in the midst of it, you're probably not very good at keeping up your accomplishments list or your resume or those achievements and things. So that was a good forcing moment to do that and do a brain dump of that. And I was really pleasantly surprised at how much I've been able to do, with this other company for 11 months. So areas where I would not have necessarily expanded into on my own, like data analytics, analytics-driven, data-driven decision-making, Web3, NFTs, blockchain. Those are areas I would not necessarily have subjectively, personally chosen to take a path down. But I'm really glad that I did, and it's given me some appreciation for new areas of interest that I wouldn't have otherwise known. So I count that all as a success.
That's huge. Huge.
What about non-tech success? What about after hours, Christy?
Well, this is my first in-person conference event for this year.
Nice.
So
Very good.
it's a
Very good.
success.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I'll take that one.
I
It's
love it.
still kind of tech related, but I get such a personal boost.
I get
such
that.
a human, it's friendships that you make around from the community, but it's also clients and customers. And these are all people that you have so much in common with just because of the technology. So this is not work to me, not tech at all. It is a way to have that kind of social life blended into my areas of interest. Yay.
Love it. Love it. Sharon.
All right, you go next, Joy.
Oh,
What do you got?
what have I got?
I don't know, Joy. Can you talk about yourself?
How long do we have? Okay, try to keep it somewhat brief. Well, professionally, I moved out of consulting, sorta, to a third-party tool company, which I never thought I would have done. But wow, it's so super cool and it's actually useful, so I love it. Go Orchestrate. But
It is a cool tool.
I had to, and the way I was describing it to my friends and my family, learn net new, right? Because I started in SharePoint so many years ago, and I learned it and I grew into it. But then for most of the last 15 years, I've just been building on that or learning the new feature sets. But it's still SharePoint under the hood, and it's Teams, but it's still these features. It's still Teams, which in the content management still SharePoint, right? So it's this thing that evolved, but it was always growing on that base of knowledge. But his brain isn't what it was 15 years ago, and it's full of so much stuff and life. So dedicating time to learn that net new and to really get into the innards of that software, that was definitely a challenge. And especially everything happens so fast these days. It's not like, okay, you're going to start building a career, and no, you got to have this down as soon as possible. So I survived. So that was really good. On the personal side, I was chosen to be part of a documentary about the women of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
So great.
that was very amazing for me. And my favorite part about it, it's not about IT women. It's not about lawyers. It's not about doctors. There's an architect. There's a rodeo queen. There's a domestic engineer, which is the technical term for a stay-at-home mom, wife, which I think is still the most important role anyone can have in this world, is raising children. And it's just a celebration of women that are the fabric of a community. That has been amazing, because I don't know about the others of us here, but I think I can be willing to bet we probably didn't have a lot of close girlfriends growing up because we were just a little different.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Just a wee bit.
So being able to plug in with professional technical women is amazing, and now to take that, and I'm becoming friends with people that aren't technical at all, and they're female. That I never thought that would happen. That's been great, and I've been asked to write an article for what will be the magazine for that as well. So that's been super exciting. So I'm going to expand my writing not just to tech, but to wherever I decide to take that.
That's a great opportunity.
That's so great.
Congratulations. When's the documentary coming out? Is it?
That we released it at Circle Cinema already, so it's been out and in the wild for a while. But I think we're about to release issue 4 of the magazine, so my article will start coming out, I think in May or June, probably June.
That's so cool. Such a cool experience.
I'm loving it. I love it.
Well, Sharon, you do a lot in your community in Kansas City.
I'm all over the place now. I don't even know where I live anymore.
You live on the road.
Yeah, I know. I live on the road. I grew up in the military, so like being on the road is home. So I think, from a career perspective, I'm going into a whole different phase of life for me. I've always been like in the cube with the Mountain Dew, like behind my computer. And over the last 10 years or so, I kind of moved up, and I started being in front of people, and I started teaching, and I started training, and I started project managing and doing all these things that I never thought I'd do. And over the last few years, so I started my own consulting business, and I started it so that I could have freedom and flexibility, and I also started it so I would stop hitting my head on the ceiling.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
And that's worked out well for me. And after a few years, I had more work than I knew what to do with. And so I started to bring in other people who with what I like to call aptitude and attitude. And so if they have the attitude and the aptitude, to your point, Christy, then I have offered those people an opportunity to transition out of a non-tech role into a technical role, because many of them have more than capable, but maybe never got the opportunity to do that. And so I built my business on this. And so I have moved into a position where I have been learning more about running a business, selling, leading, doing strategic things in a way that I've never had to do before. I've always just been the person to solve the problems and do the tech. And so now I'm, kind of growing up a little bit, I guess. And now, don't you worry. I'm going to stay in the tech space because that's what I love to do. But I really have learned a lot, and I definitely am going to celebrate the win that I've had a successful consulting business now for almost 6 years this summer. We're up to 6 full-time employees, which I think is a big deal.
That is a big deal.
And so we're doing great. On the personal side of things, last year, my husband and I celebrated our 30th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And our kids grew up. And so for the first time in my life, I took more than a 1-week vacation. Never,
Was it a conference?
No. Well, I did stop by a couple conferences,
Okay.
but we went to Europe for a month. So we sold our house last year in Kansas City. We went to Europe for a month. I spoke at Scottish Summit and Comsverse last year. But we took a month and we went to Europe and we saw the sights in Scotland and London and Paris, and we just enjoyed ourselves and it was great. And then we achieved our dreams and we got a house in Orlando.
Oh, is that
And
where
so I did a long-term lease in Orlando.
Wow.
In a resort, just to kind of try it out and be like, what would it be like to live in a resort? And so this last year has been super fun because we've gotten to do things that we just never thought we'd get to do. So I still am on the road. I still spend a significant amount of time in Kansas City. I still spend a time running around to conferences. I am definitely love being part of this community. It's very close to my heart. It's a big deal to me. But yeah, definitely a lot of wins over the last year or two, for sure.
Well, and you've had a location change recently too, correct?
I did. Well, first off, can you SWOT analysis? This is your next thing that you have to learn how to do. The basics. I have a book on my shelf. I don't have an MBA, but note to self, buy the book that they use for the courses for an MBA and just read them.
Yes.
That's what I did when I ran my own company, and you can self-teach that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And there's places on LinkedIn and everything. It's really pretty amazing. You can learn that like you learn this.
Nice.
That's
CEO toolkit in a box.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Basically. This last year, look, I'm going to count surviving COVID as a win, frankly, because,
Yes.
for us in teams, I've never been through anything like that in my entire career. What happened to teams at the beginning of the pandemic and the lingering effects of that, right? My entire team's emergency operations solution that my team has built is because I was running the team's COVID response team, which I shouldn't have had that job. I ended up with that job because I'm great with really big meetings and I'm disaster trained. And so there was multiple teams across Microsoft, and then they rolled up to the big one and comms and all that stuff. So it's very complicated, but I just learned so much from that I'm still unpacking it, I think, about what's important, about where I want to spend my time. We sold our house in Seattle, I had a second vacation property. So summers are up in Seattle, and then I go up for build and meetings and all this kind of stuff because I have a place up there. Yeah. But now we live in Arizona the rest of the time. And I thought that I would miss everything. Turns out waking up in the sunshine every day and your husband being really happy because he has a pool really changes everything. But it was about letting go because I really had to confront my grief that I felt like I worked my whole career to work inside something like Teams engineering. Really, at the beginning before the pandemic, it was like working inside of a sun. the energy there was so intense, and we knew we were building something that was going to change everything. We didn't know the pandemic was coming, but we knew we were on a mission, and there was this feeling of all those people in those offices. And when that was over, I was heartbroken. Right? I was heartbroken. And then that feeling is distributed around the world, but it's not the same as being in the office with all those people. So people go back to the office, but there's, 15 or 20 or 100 of you instead of, 2,000 of you. And so I was really pretty grief-struck about that. I felt like something had been taken from me. And so, for me, I counted it as a success that I'm like, okay, you can't go back. You have to go forward. Like, I'm the change management chick at Microsoft, right? Like, again, I kind of had to walk my talk. Like, okay, stop focusing on the past. What does the future look like? Like, let's architect the future like you tell everybody else to do. Let all that stuff go and make something new. And so we're still doing that. This is only our first season up there in Arizona, but letting go and being able to let the universe show me something new, being teachable is my success. Letting go, being teachable, being honest that it was upsetting me, because I tend to not do that. Mm-hmm. I'm very good at compartmentalizing my emotions and putting them over in a corner for later, right. Which does not work, just for everybody out there. It doesn't work. And so I really have to, do what I tell other people to do. Right, really embrace all of that. So that was a huge success. And I built a gym in my new house so that I could invest in my own physical well-being. Because I have a tendency also, I was very sick as a kid, and so I tend to not think about my physical body as much as I should, because it just was wired in me to not think about that from being so sick. And so now, I'm doing yoga in my gym. I have the mirror thing that I can take, and just giving that time back to myself. In that exercise way has been really important for my mental health. So those are my wins for sure.
Those are great.
We'll see if I can keep it up. But I like the activity rings on my watch because I can see, hey, do I actually get it? Do I stand? Do I do my steps? What do I do besides sit in front of the computer and do work?
And I agree with the happiness in the sunshine. And I also have a happy husband who wakes up in the sunshine, who's been sending me photos of him in the pool today.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Exactly, yes.
She loves the motivation.
My husband's decided he doesn't like pants or real shoes. He likes flip-flops and shorts.
Yes.
I'm like, dude.
Yes.
There's a small chance of snow tonight here in Denver.
Hush.
I am hitting the plane at 4 o'clock. I am out.
Oh, she'll be gone. Yeah.
Don't you tempt the weather.
Nope, don't say it. Don't say it.
So speaking of all the great things that teams accomplished before, during, since the pandemic and all that, so I have a story I tell, and it's usually when I'm giving a speech to somebody about notification management. So in Tulsa, we didn't shut down quite as hard as the rest of the world, because there's not a lot of us in Oklahoma. So my husband and I went to one of our favorite Mexican restaurant happy hours on Thursdays because they do prime rib and he is carnivore. So we're at the bar and everything was socially distanced. This was probably August, September of 2020. And I hear the teams ring, right? And I'm like, oh crap, what's happening? Get my phone out. It's not me. Oh, who else has Teams? I'm looking around. Nobody's going for their phone. It was the Microsoft Teams commercial.
Yes.
On TV.
Yes.
And I realized in that moment I was Pavlov's dog. Yeah. I had been trained to it. Thank you for the remix ringtone, though.
Oh, yes. It's a party. Every time I have a call, it's a party.
Yeah.
If you have not changed your Teams ringtone to the remix, do it.
Yes.
Do it.
Yes.
I'm going to have to make a note
But-
of that. I haven't done that yet.
I know, yeah. Feedback. We need that in the new teams. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
She's like,
Okay.
I know. I've
already
heard that. Yeah.
So exciting things in teams, but I also think exciting things for the women in teams community.
Wait, what?
So I'm going to preface this because last year we did a luncheon and I handed a gentleman an invitation to the women in teams luncheon. He's like, well, I'm not a woman. And he chucked it back at me. And I was like, no, it's for everyone, right? Women in Teams is open to all humans
That's correct.
in the IT
We are
community.
celebrating women, not
Right.
limiting to women.
Allyship.
Correct. Allyship is a thing.
It is a thing, and it is an amazing, beautiful thing. And anyone can be an ally for anyone, by the way.
Nod, nod, wink, wink.
But Caruana, what are you most excited about in the Women in Teams community? Like the whole big community.
Wow,
us.
a lot.
Tell us.
I'm excited to just first off continue to celebrate the fact, and I don't know if everybody realizes this, but most of the amazing Women of Teams organizers do it of their own free will. It is free volunteer work that people do all around the world, and I am so grateful. And I was one of those people before it became my job. I did it for free. My husband, a funny story, he used to be like, "Why are you doing all this free work? What are you doing on Saturdays? Why are you doing all this free stuff?" I'm like, "Dude, just trust me. It's going to work out." And of course it did. But I think that also, even if I hadn't ended up with a job at Microsoft, I would still be doing free work today because I love what it brings me. But the women in technology and women in teams, they're really just ramping up so quickly, bringing back these in-person local events. And it's really important. User groups, local meetups, hybrid ones, online for people who can't travel. There's so much happening. And everybody can sign up and learn about all of that at our Microsoft community front door, ak.ms, MGCI. That's the global community initiative that my team and I support. But it's actually run by MVPs and people outside of Microsoft. And this is a really big deal, right? To have an initiative fully funded and supported by Microsoft, but not run by Microsoft people, and having it be led by the community. And that means that there's lots of leadership opportunities for women. And I see them just stepping up in droves, right? To lead things, to do local community days events, which you can find at communitydays.org. Really to reach out to people. And I love this thing that I saw. And there's two different ones. One is new to Microsoft, right? Like you're new to Microsoft, you don't know anything about all this. How do you navigate it all? And then there was also some stuff going on about new speakers, like speaker trainings sort of stuff, which I thought was amazing. And so I just think that there's so much opportunity, and I love seeing the women really lean into that. I love being able to support them officially. I have the best job in the world because I get to build stuff and talk to humans. It's amazing, right? And help support people. And so, but yeah, the Women in Teams ecosystem as a whole. And I do have to say, look, I was on the board that created the Women of SharePoint, right? Kathy Dew and Liz Sendet and a bunch of other folks were involved in that. And I think the Women in Teams built on their shoulders, and we know that. And, I also think that's why we were able to evolve our community so quickly, is because the SharePoint people had given us a successful blueprint. So we could just look at that and go, okay, we need all that stuff over here. Right? And it was a lot of the same people too, because of course, SharePoint delivers the content experience for Teams, in case you didn't know.
Better together.
Yeah, better together. Hashtag better together. I take credit for creating that back in the day. Thank you. I am actually the Better Together PM actually on the team. That's a big piece of what I do. And because, but there's just so much opportunity, so many good things. And I just love seeing all these women get involved. I think that's huge because women are spectacular and they're allies, 100%. It's not just about the women. We're gonna continue to have these events at all these different shows. All men are always welcome. We are not exclusionary in any way, but we like to focus on supporting women because we do have some unique challenges in this business, and to make it different for those who come after us, right?
One of the things I think that supports that in the Microsoft Global Community Initiative is the fact that Microsoft has invested time and effort and people's expertise in developing a roadmap and assets and documentation and how-to guidance. I think a lot of women who might have thought about conducting or hosting community events previously might have paused doing so because in a lot of organizations, sometimes the person who speaks up and wants to do something ends up doing all the things, and it's, it's discouraging. But with the Microsoft supported and in some cases developed assets and information and guidance, that makes that so much easier for people to to be able to on-ramp into hosting or creating their own community events and not necessarily feel like 100% of the weight is going to be on their shoulders. They've got resources at hand to be able to leverage to help them do those things.
That
That's
is
been
so true.
my
I'm so glad you
impetus.
said that because, yes, yay, somebody saw our stuff. Yeah, and on the fourth Thursday of every month, we have an event organizers training. So you can join us. It's free training. We show you all those tools. We teach you how to build an organizing committee, for instance, or how to get sponsors. Or maybe events aren't your thing. Maybe instead you'd like to produce something like this or your own video or what have you. All those topics we cover in that free training. And I am just so committed to making sure that people have the tools that they need. And so are the other MVPs and board members and people outside of Microsoft who are participating in this. So everybody has something to offer. There's a place for everyone. But yeah, we really want to help people for sure.
And it's a good mix of men and women, not just necessarily focusing on the women in teams or the women in community, but that whole community environment is a good mix of men and women. Providing information and those assets. So all good stuff.
Well, I have to say, I dabbled and put my toes in the water a little bit and helped organize a Women in Teams event during MVP Summit. No one looked at me and said, no, I don't want to be involved. No fun at Summit, no party. No, I mean,
And it was
just,
unfortunate that it was not very many people came. Wait. Oh, that's wrong.
Yeah,
it was well attended.
I'm pretty sure that's 100% wrong. Yeah, I saw the pictures. I had the full-on fear of missing out. I was so sad. to not
Joy
be
was
there.
legit Joy was so afraid that this was not going to be very big, and I kept telling her, I'm like, we just do it. It's going to be great.
Doesn't matter, the people.
And it was so wonderful. We had a great turnout.
Then I was freaking out. We're going to break fire code. They're going to kick us out. I'm going to tell people to leave.
Yeah.
But
Those are what we call first world problems, Joy.
world
First world
problems.
problems.
Yeah.
Problems.
If you're thinking about how do I get involved in community, maybe you just ask one of the local events near you, how can I help? They always need T-shirts folded. They always need someone to man a sticker table. They always need someone to scan badges. I have to say it.
We need the stinking badges.
Stinking badges. But there's always something to do, and you will be very appreciated for helping, and you can kind of grow into that. But yes, no one will say, no, I don't need your help.
I think that's a really great point. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, I really want to get involved, but I don't want to speak, or I don't want to be responsible for organizing. Guys, there is a big, gigantic need for volunteers, and you don't have to do anything crazy. You could just show up and help with these little things, or be on a community, some sort of a panel, or be on one of the committees and do one little thing. And sometimes, so that one person doesn't have to do all those things, you can show up and do that one little teeny tiny thing, and it'll make a huge difference. So don't be afraid to step up and maybe help.
Everybody who puts any effort into one of these community events is so appreciated. And you're 100% right. It doesn't matter what you do. Fold the T-shirts, help guide people to the ladies' room, whatever it is, right? Answer questions at the information desk. Yeah, you don't have to be a speaker. You don't have to be an organizer. If that's not what, makes you comfortable, don't do that. But don't cheat yourself out of feeling like you're a part of something. Because I really think that it's about being a part of something bigger than yourself. That's what I get from this community. And I know that, when someday I decide to retire from Microsoft, what I'll leave behind is not all the budget spreadsheets I turned in, which I just turned in before I got here. No, it's not even all the slide decks that I've created or the blog articles I've created. It's the relationships I've built and being able to be a part of something that outlasts me, is so rewarding. I have this graphic I've been sharing, which is about putting yourself in the sweet spot between what you're talented at, what is fulfilling to you, and what drives impact. And being in the middle of that Venn diagram is what I call the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And it's on if you want to see it, it's on my blog on LinkedIn. But I think it's really important that for me, this is that, and it can be that for anybody. And you don't have to, be the one on the firing line dealing with the fire marshal, right? That is a total quality problem. But the last thing I'll say about that is, if you're doing an event or any kind of panel, I highly advise people to stop worrying about how many people show up. Don't worry about that. Just give the people who are there a great experience. I have presented to 4 people. And as long as I had a great experience, I did my job, right? And I've, presented to 3,000 people, right? Obviously, it's different, but the minute I let go of that, I felt myself be more free to focus on the quality of my content and my own story, and it was good.
Sometimes those ones that end up with only a couple of people can be super fun.
Oh, they're great. I love them. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, that's so great.
Those tangents can go anywhere.
Yes, they
You
do.
have that opportunity for discussion that way.
So I think we're down to about our last 5 minutes. And I wanted to thank everybody for spending the time on this panel. I wanted to give each person about a minute. If you have anything that you'd like to promote or share or bring up, this is your moment to shine. So Christy, we're gonna start on your side, but if there's anything you're like everybody needs to know about this, I want to give you just that minute to self-promote.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is something that Women in Teams has been really helpful for, because I totally suck at self-promotion. I'm drawing a blank right now. But I think what I will do is talk a little bit about my session tomorrow. So this conference, I think, evolved out of unified communications, which is all kinds of things, not just Microsoft Teams, but walkie-talkies and PBX and phone systems, and there's this much bigger world out there. But I'm really pleased that I'll be able to speak tomorrow about Microsoft Teams and governance and compliance situations around Teams, which is one of those things, compliance and governance, it's something that I've become an expert in. It's one of those things that if somebody has some experience in it, then you become kind of typecast as the governance person or the expert.
True.
And that's kind of great, for if that's part of your brand, then that's great to be able to be reached out to as an extra voice of governance for different platforms. So that's been really rewarding, and I think that all came about from the SBS Denver, where I met you, Sharon, in 2018. That was my first community speaking event related to Microsoft governance, particularly, and look where I am now.
We'll go see Christy's session. All right, Joy, what you got?
Well, tomorrow I will also be speaking on requirements from beginning to Teams. So you got to know what the business needs to be able to have successful adoption and rollout in Teams. Yeah, Teams is out there, but are they using it? Is it working the way they need it to? So we're going to be talking a little bit about ITaaS and how IT as a service is a thing, and how in this modern, very agile world, it needs to continue to be a thing. But one piece of advice I want to give, especially women in tech, women in Teams that are listening. If you don't ask, the answer is automatically no. That could be for a promotion. That could be for a negotiation. That could be for speaking. If you don't submit, you're not going to get accepted, right? If you don't, and it's scary to ask. That's the advice I have to tell myself all the time. My husband reminds me of that actually pretty frequently, which can be annoying, but I also appreciate it so much. I don't want to ask. Then it's a no. I hate that word. So ask. Be
Good
bold.
one. Good one. I'm doing the Women in Teams panel this afternoon. And then I'm actually headed to Vegas next week for the Microsoft 365 conference. We'll be doing a workshop on syntax. I'm also got a Teams premium session and a syntax session, so I'll be around there. And we are doing a Women in Tech luncheon, kind of like table talk thing, which I'm really excited about. So if anybody's at the conference in Vegas next week, make sure to come find me and we'll chat about some things. I am going to do a little blatant self-promotion for just a second. Joy and I actually, another community event, as in the SharePoint Saturdays, right? We actually run an event called CollabCon, and this year we're doing CollabCon in Orlando, and it's on September 15th. And so if you're interested in joining us, we just rolled out everything. Just go to collabconforall.com, and you can sign up. And it's also on Community Days.
Of course it is, because Community Days is the thing.
The thing.
That's awesome. Well, the first thing that I want to do is thank everybody out there for listening to us, and thank you for organizing this. It's so wonderful to be included in these things. I really appreciate it. I'm going to ask you, if one thing I would say is go and visit adoption.microsoft.com. there are so many resources we have out there for Teams, for Power Platform, for Dynamics, for Viva, in terms of adoption, governance, and training guidance. And you can take it all and use it in your own organization. Then you can check out the communities like our champion communities where there's lots of more good stuff. But just browse through the navigation of adoption.microsoft.com, sign up for stuff, sign up for our Global Community Initiative, and then you'll be in the know about all these awesome events, about new content as it becomes available. And, we're just there to make sure that you have what you need to get the most out of Microsoft services. And then if you see me at an event, say hi. I am friendly. I will always stop and talk to people. Love to take selfies. It's awesome. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And, you're the architect of your own journey. If there's something in your space that's not fulfilling you, if it's not moving you towards your sweet spot, change it. You can change it. We can take this opportunity and so many of the changes that have happened both in our society but also in technology right now to craft a reality that is really fulfilling to us. So don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Do it for yourself. And if you need help, reach out to us because we're here to help you 100%.
Awesome.
That is my message for today.
I think that about wraps us up. Eric, are we on time? Yeah?
Excellent.
Well, thanks for
you.
joining us, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.